With the recent news of Tobe Hooper passing away, I mean, one of the most influential directors, I mean, in all horror movies. So what are some of your thoughts about Tobe?
Well, first off, I got to tell you, I mean, I don't know anybody that's crossed my path that had the sweetness that Tobe has as a person and the self-effacing attitude about, you know, his work and so gracious about any compliment. I mean, there was, you know, if he had an ego back in the day, it certainly was long gone. You know, one time I met him with the Masters of Horror dinners that, you know, we would do.
Right.
And his work, yeah, I mean, when I was still a film student, I was studying editing under Dan O'Bannon, and Dan O'Bannon and John Carpenter had made Dark Star at that point, had not done Halloween. John had not done Halloween yet. And the first assignment for our class was go see this new movie that just came out. I'm telling you, it's really, you know, kick butt kind of movie, and it was Texas Chainsaw.
Uh-huh.
So, you know, we all were like blown away by the intensity of it. And, you know, as a horror fan, I didn't know what to make of it. I was like, God, but, you know, it's just really, to me, crossed the line, but he did it. And it's like, you know, you couldn't get it out of your head.
Uh-huh. Right.
And then, you know, watching all the different things that he did as the years went on was you know, he really was an original.
Yeah.
There's no question about that.
Absolutely.
You know, we always felt bad about the whole poltergeist thing, you know, but for him, it obviously, Steven gave him a huge leg up to do it, but, you know, Steven, and,
right.
you know, needed to be directing that at the same time as he was doing E.T., which he wasn't supposed to be doing, so he worked it out. So Tobe was there the whole time, but, you know, and not in the capacity that obviously I'm sure he wished he was. But, you know, all those things kind of add up to a person that, you know, really kind of understood the difficulties of the business and kept going, kept finding ways of making films in any way he could, no matter how low budget, no matter where in the world he had to go. Yeah. And as I said, he was so generous of spirit and, you know, always would, you know, at the end of these things, you know, hug you and see you next time. And just, you know, just a great, great guy.
Great guy, and his movies will live on forever. And as I said a minute ago, I mean, the influence of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I mean, it seems like so many horror directors these days just try to take that formula that he did, and none of them seem to be able to do it exactly as great as he did it. So his
very raw.
It's very raw,
incredibly raw. To have George Romero and Tobe, and of course, you know, not that long ago, Wes Craven, you know, all be gone, and all these guys, you know, really put their stamp on the future of horror movies. And, you know, we all looked up to them as, you know, well, they were the pioneers, you know, that you know, started a lot of the trends that just so many other people made a living off of. And I remember Wes Craven sat next to me one night at one of these dinners, and, you know, he was saying, I don't know your career. Can you tell me? You know, and I started listing off all these, you know, TV movies and miniseries and cable movies and, you know, a couple of features I did. And he looked at me and said, you know, I wished I had your career. I went, are you kidding me? Wes Craven, name above the title. And he goes, yeah, but it's like I'm boxed into this thing. And, you know, every time I did a movie that wasn't part of the horror genre, for whatever reason, it didn't work. And I said, but those are good movies. He goes, I know, but they could only really, you know, push me as a horror director. And I would love to, you know, jumped into all these different genres as you did. You know, I was blessed in that regard that I got to do a lot of different things, but, you know, I still would have, you know, much preferred to be in the position that, you know, that you're in, where you really, you know, you're the all-knowing guy and literally has his name above the title. So, you know, you really own it, you know. But, you know, there's a price to that. Yeah, right. I mean, a lot of people don't really think about that, but that's a good point. I mean, you could get stereotyped into just doing horror movies. I mean, your career, you've done a lot of things, and I kind of see where Wes is coming from, but, you know, of course, the guy's going to be remembered as a legend in horror movies, and I don't think that's too bad either. No, at all, not at all. I mean, all you know, three of these guys, all, you know, that's who you look towards for that. And in this industry, you know, they love boxes because it's so easy not to have to think. It's like, okay, we're going to do a horror movie. Who do we go to? And then we look in the box, and here's all these guys. If there's, you know, if they jumped around like I did, it's like, well, I don't know. You know, does he, you know, make romantic comedies? Like, Date with an Angel? Does he do horror? Does he do these true crime things? Because, I did the DC Sniper and Murder of Innocence, and of course, the thing that that was really a difficult thing, Murder in Greenwich, which dealt with the whole Kennedy cousin thing, and all these things, I really researched. I loved the fact that I was going into real life monsters. They weren't fantasies, but in the 80s, I got to direct Freddy and Jason and do a Stephen King thing.
So let me ask you this real quick about Alice Cooper. I mean, of course, Friday the 13th, 6, Alice was a huge part of that soundtrack. Rock music in horror movies, I mean, it's pretty important. I mean, I think of the Ramones and Pet Sematary, their song. That was one of the Ramones' biggest hits of the 80s. And I mean, have you been in contact with Alice since you reformed the Sloths?
Here's the really ironic thing. Back in 66, 67, somewhere in there. It's really kind of all blurs together. But we were performing with a group a couple of times out at a club called the Cheetah, and this group was called the Naz, and the lead singer was a guy Vincent. All I knew he was from Texas, and I spent time at we all went to Frank Zappa's house. He had like his cabin, Laurel Canyon, and the Birds and all the local groups were all kind of hung out there. And, Vincent was eventually Alice. And as the legend goes, there was Frank Zappa who came up with the idea of calling the band Alice Cooper, because there was another group called the Naz, that were already starting to, make headway. So they, had to change the name anyway. So, all the years went by, and I never actually saw them live. I saw, certain videos and things, and I thought, oh, shit, he's doing this thing I wanted to do with the horror and the, and of course these elaborate, executions and hangings and all this stuff he did on stage. Yeah. So when we were, putting music together for the Friday the 13th, we were trying to figure out, who we can get and, what we can afford, because, again, these things were low budget. But Frank Mancuso, who was the, producer on it, came to me and he said, the Alice Cooper people approached us, and, what do you think about Alice actually writing a song? And I go, God, that would be amazing. Yes, of course. So he actually wrote, he's back, the man behind the mask, and it was very different the first time. It was much more hard rock, which I loved, but somehow they all felt, no, it's not 80s enough. So they kind of changed it so it has more of the synth beat and stuff to it, which still was good, but, for me, it was an old school rocker. I still kind of liked the first version. But, we then asked, well, could we get some other songs? So, Teenage Frankenstein, we got in there, Hard Rock Summer, and so it was this great blessing to have Alice be a part of it. And, he did pictures with our Jason, C.J. Graham, and, it's really been such a huge part of the movie. And all this time, we still have not crossed paths at any conventions or whatever. And I'm really looking forward to that. Because I'm now, in our band, singing. He's back, the man behind the mask, singing it. So for fans, when they do these shows, it for them, it's not Alice, but it's kind of great to hear the writer-director doing the song that was in the movie. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I actually did it out there in Chicago at what was that thing called? Massacre. I think it was like an all-night filmed, there, and I came down and performed it with the band there in town. So it's been it's been great.